forget about the Council of Reeds and the Council of Ricks. The Council of Kangs are headed to a multiverse near you. Let's rank every Kang the Conqueror who appeared in Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. Also, just a quick warning for you, this video will contain spoilers for that movie, and with that out of the way, let's jump into it. The first and strongest Kang on our list is also the one that we are most familiar with. He's the main villain of Quantumania, and he's a former member of the Council of Kangs, more on them in a bit. This former member got a taste of power and decided that he wouldn't be satisfied until he had it all. This led to him going on a rampage across the multiverse, wiping out universes and destroying any Avengers who tried to stand in his way. Yeah, sorry, Thor.
I'm gonna fly over to your house, rip off your arms, and shove them up your butt!
This Kang proved to be so powerful that all of his other variants decided that they had to put an end to his conquering. So they banded together and put him in timeout in the quantum realm so he could think about what he did. Not even this was enough to put a stop to his aspirations, as he was able to construct a massive empire that allowed him to rule the quantum realm with an iron fist. When the Ant family were sucked into the quantum realm as well, Kang saw this as his opportunity to finally escape and then exact his revenge on the multiverse, nearly destroying our heroes with his bare hands. He was only able to be stopped by the greatest power in all of Marvel Comics, ants.
Ants, Ant-Man!
While this version of Kang is incredibly strong, displaying a number of incredibly overpowered abilities and weapons, he did end up seemingly being killed by Ant-Man and the Wasp. However, I think it's likely that he was instead simply trapped in another probability storm, similar to the one that he himself sent Scott into earlier, and he'll return in either the Kang Dynasty or Secret Wars with even more power and rage than before. Maybe those rumors about the Beyonder being reinvented as a version of Kang were a bit more accurate than anyone thought. As we saw in the mid-credits scene of Quantumania, the Council of Kangs are the ones who banished the blue-masked baddie in the first place, and their leader is the variant known as Immortus. While we do see two other major variants meeting with him, and we will talk about them later, Immortus seems to be the person calling the shots. He is shown to be keeping a close eye on the multiverse, and when the banished Kang is beaten, Immortus is the one who summons all the other variants to the stadium so we can have our homage to that one comic panel. While it is true that all Kangs are bound to be pretty strong, the fact that Immortus appears to be the Council's de facto leader makes him the most dangerous one out of all of them, aside from our banished Kang. It's also worth noting that Immortus also has scars on his face similar to the banished Kang, something we see the other variants don't have. This could potentially mean that he comes from a similar warrior background to Quantumania's Kang, but decided to instead take a more behind-the-scenes role in his crusade. Looking back at the comics, Immortus is also the ruler of Limbo, a pocket dimension where time can be easily manipulated. Now, to me, that calls to mind the TVA from the Loki Disney Plus series. What if the TVA headquarters that we see in that show are actually located within Limbo? And now that everything's all topsy-turvy, Immortus is the new ruler? It's a fun theory to think about while we wait to catch our next glimpse at a variant of the MCU's new big bad villain. Along with Immortus, we see a variant in the mid-credit scene who appears to be an adaptation of the Scarlet Centurion. He's basically Kang's warrior variant, always ready to charge into battle and duke it out with heroes like the Avengers. The variant that we see in the credits scene is wearing a futuristic suit of armor, and there's a comment made that he wishes that he could have been the one to kill the banished Kang, indicating his bloodthirsty nature. The only reason we can't be 100% sure that this isn't the Scarlet Centurion is, well, the fact that he's not wearing any red at all.
I can't tell if you're joking or not.
There's been more than one Scarlet Centurion in the comics, and in the original Kang Dynasty storyline, the identity was used by Kang's son, Marcus. As the events unfold, Marcus continues to fight the heroes by his father's side, and we also learn that he's actually a clone, and there are at least 22 other dead versions of himself. It seems pretty unlikely that the MCU will go with this strange and honestly pretty morbid backstory for Marcus, and instead the should I call him the Silver Centurion? Anyway, yeah, that'll probably just end up being another Kang variant. The third and final Kang variant we will see alongside Immortus and Scarlet Centurion in the mid-credit scene is Rama-Tut, a version of Kang who traveled back in time to become an ancient Egyptian pharaoh, if you couldn't tell by that very handsome headgear that he's wearing. Rama-Tut was actually the first variant of Kang to ever appear, debuting in 1963's Fantastic Four issue 19. He used his futuristic technology to defeat and then capture the first family, but before long, they turned the tables and sent him fleeing in his time ship. It would be really fun to see an event similar to that happen in the Fantastic Four's first MCU film. Now that we know that Rama-Tut will be a major player in the MCU, it would make sense to connect the Fantastic Four to him so that we can have an explanation as to how exactly they got drawn into the battle against all of the Kangs. In addition to the Fantastic Four connection, Marvel could also use Rama-Tut as a way to sneakily introduce the villainous mutant Apocalypse. The two have an obvious shared connection to ancient Egypt, and Sabah-Nur only ended up becoming Apocalypse as a result of the pharaoh's attempts to kill him. Having Rama-Tut be responsible for the creation of one of the MCU's next big bads would be a nice way to set the stage for the X-Men to take over as major characters, as well as ensuring that Kang's legacy continues to live on even after Avengers 5 and 6. The MCU's version of Rama-Tut does seem to have one very interesting difference from his comic book counterpart, and that's the fact that several of his body parts appear to be robotic. Part of his arms and even his torso have been replaced with cybernetic upgrades.
You have a metal arm? That is awesome, dude!
While Immortus and Scarlet Centurion seem to hold more direct power than him, Rama-Tut is still a dangerous variant who certainly should not be underestimated. Now that we have the Council's 3 leaders out of the way, let's talk about some of the characters that you can glimpse in the Colosseum's audience. One major variant who appears near the end of the mid-credits scene portals in after Immortus finishes speaking, and he's wearing a black outfit that has several similarities to the costume of a certain Latvian dictator. Now I know what you're thinking. I am not suggesting that Dr. Doom is, or should be, a Kang variant in the MCU. That would take away so much of what is interesting about him. However, the comics have established several connections between Kang and Victor Von Doom, with the Conqueror himself even taking up the identity of Dr. Doom at one point. It's possible that we could see a variant of Kang here who has done just that, having been inspired by a previous encounter with the scary Tin Man himself. The idea of a villain who combines the powers of Dr. Doom and Kang is terrifying to think about, but there's one more important thing that could tie them together in the MCU. The portals that the various Kangs use to enter the Colosseum are the same technology that Reed Richards uses in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, the Time Platform. And who invented the Time Platform? Well, Dr. Doom, of course. If this ends up going where I think it could, that Kang that we glimpse may turn out to be the creator of these platforms for the Council, or I could just be hyping myself up too much because, well, Dr. Doom. Mister Gryphon is a Kang variant who was trapped in the 21st century and became an influential businessman, establishing a company called Kang Enterprises and acquiring Avengers Tower. Rather than wearing an advanced suit of armor like most other of his variants, Mister Gryphon dresses a bit more professionally, though he is still just as dangerous as the rest of them. This business attire is how we can recognize him in Quantumania's mid-credit scene, as he appears to be the only Kang not wearing some sort of armor. The MCU has already paved the way for Mister Gryphon to make some big moves, what with the appearance of a Kang Enterprises building in Loki, as well as the fact that we still don't know who purchased Avengers Tower. Odds are that we will see this variant pop back up soon, angling to weaken the Avengers with his shrewd and cutthroat business tactics, while the other Kangs prepare to wage all-out war on our heroes. One particular variant that's attracted quite a bit of attention is someone who appears to be a Skrull version of Kang. The Conqueror is obviously super powerful on his own, but an additional shape-shifting ability could make this variant even more dangerous and unpredictable than any of the ones that we've seen. With the secret invasion on the horizon, could Marvel Studios tie the shape-shifting green aliens to Kang by having them be controlled by one of his variants? It's certainly an intriguing possibility to consider, especially since Secret Invasion is a huge story and we don't quite know yet how it'll tie into the overarching Multiverse Saga. It wouldn't be too surprising to see the Council of Kangs orchestrating a number of major events in the MCU over the next few years, and the Skrull Kang could end up being an integral part of this plan. The post-credits scene of Quantumania gave us a preview of Loki Season 2, with the Trickster God and Mobius spying on a presentation by a Kang variant called Victor Timely. Comic book fans know that this is a version of the Conqueror who traveled back to the early 1900s and used his future knowledge to establish himself as a prominent inventor. He even founded his own town and named it after himself. Because if you couldn't tell already, Kang kind of has a big ego.
Obviously.
In the post-credits scene, we see that Timely has apparently created a device that will allow him to manipulate the timeline, which will surely be the source of much conflict for the TVA, especially since another Kang variant is currently serving as their leader. I'm excited to hopefully see more versions of him throughout Season 2, but something tells me that Victor Timely will end up proving himself to be a very important character in the lead up to the Kang dynasty, even if he does presently seem to be more of a thinker than a fighter. I don't really have much to say about this next variant because he really speaks for himself. He's a version of Kang who is from a universe where all humans are primates, and he is called Kang Kong. Imagine taking all the powers and weapons that we've talked about so far and giving them to an ape. Kang Kong may not be a super complex character, but that's what also makes him so great. If we don't see more of this particular member of the Council of Kangs, then Marvel, you have some serious explaining to do. I mean, for goodness sake. The Avengers in his universe are called the Ape-Vengers. Forget Daredevil or Agatha. That's a Disney Plus show that I am going to need soon. The final variant that we will be talking about is one who portals into the Coliseum of Kangs, wearing what appears to be the same outfit as He Who Remains from the Loki Season 1 finale. Of course, that's a bit confusing, considering He Who Remains was killed by Sylvie in that episode, leading to the multiverse breaking open in the first place. However, I'm thinking that we could be dealing with a younger version of He Who Remains from earlier in the timeline, before he ended the multiversal war and formed the TVA. I would not put it past Marvel to introduce us to this younger version in Loki Season 2 and then reveal that he's caught in a stable time loop, doomed to repeat the actions that will lead to the inevitable fracturing of the sacred timeline.
This is starting to sound like a bad comic book plot.
He Who Remains was the first Kang variant we met in the MCU, and it would be cool to take things full circle by having a similar version of him reappear somewhere down the line to show that Kang's arrival was always going to happen. This would be a way for Sylvie to physically confront and deal with her guilt at having unleashed the madness of the multiverse, putting her mistake behind her as she and her friends prepare to confront the Kang dynasty head on. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out this video. If you enjoyed it, please make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Ooh, and let us know in the comments which Kang variants you would like to see in the MCU. And let me leave you with an idea. How about a Kang variant who drives around the big wheel?